Hello and welcome to another Sprues and Brews video. Today we are looking at the latest instalment of the Enemy Within campaign for the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, Death on the Reik, and its companion volume. So yeah, this is the second part of the Enemy With campaign. Cubicle 7 kicked off last year with Enemy in Shadows, the first volume of this. They call it a director's cut of the Enemy Within campaign, so a lot of people will know that campaign from older editions of the game, and they've basically spruced it up, given it a bit of a remaster, and split it into a big 5-volume campaign, each campaign with its own companion book. So yeah, really cool. So today, we're going to have a look at these, see what's inside, and see all the goodies that we get. Won't be going too much into spoilers in the actual campaign itself, just kind of an overview on that, but we'll go digging into all the goodies that you get additional in the companion. So yeah, massive thanks to Cubicle 7 who sent these books out a little bit early for us to take a look at. And if you're interested in our previous review of Enemy in Shadows, I will link that in the video. We've also got a full written write-up for this review as well over on spruesandbrews.com, where we go into the whole thing and give our thoughts on it. So yeah, make sure to check out that too. So first of all, let's have a look at Death in the Reik. So as you can tell from the cover, this is going to be very river-based as we traverse the rivers of the Empire on our journey. So yeah, follows on directly from Enemy in Shadows, and if you play that campaign, you know at the end of that there could be a few various outcomes to what happens to the city at the end of that, and this carries on our adventure. So let's take a look inside. And yeah, first thing we should point out, this is an absolutely gorgeous book. From the first front cover, we've got a full map of the Reikland. Hopefully they do a full map of this. I know for some of the other fantasy roleplay books they have brought out some separate maps, which is cool. And yeah, some really cool artwork inside. So yeah, so this is essentially the continuation of the previous campaign. It's a lot more open than the previous ones on the grounds of a lot of this is based on the river. So the players have got access to a boat. They can perhaps visit things in a different order than the games master would have intended. So the book's really handy in that it gives you some kind of tips into not railroading the players, but giving you some options and control over what they do, and just to be able to account for anything that may come up. So this suggests maybe encourage the players to come up with their plan of where they're going to go at the end of one session into the next, to give you time to kind of come up with any twists and stuff. And as we'll see in the Death on the Reik companion book, there's quite a few options to fill out where the players kind of go off your track, so that's really cool. Continuing from Enemy in Shadows as well, we see these boxes with kind of alternate rules for people who may have already played through the campaign, which is really cool to see. It means that if you've got a group of people and maybe one of the players has played through the campaign before, they're not necessarily going to know what happens if you throw in some of these alternate rules just to mix things up a bit. There's a few where if that player decides to do what they know to be the correct path, it may go awry. So yeah, really cool to see those. But yeah, this has got 8 chapters, taking us from Bogenhafen, from the previous book where we ended, through to the path to Marienburg. Really cool story. I'm not going to go into too much into spoilers here because I know a lot of people want to play it. Just want to kind of give an overview of the book in this one. But yeah, really fun. Lots of different things to do. We've got like a dungeon crawl at the end with the castle. Lots of variety. So really cool. It's also a really pretty and nicely laid out book. So as you've probably seen from our previous Enemy Within review, they keep a similar format here, so any kind of important information that the Games Master needs to know are in separate box outs. All of the handouts and maps are kind of duplicated in the book as we go along, but then at the very end, as we'll see later on, they're also replicated there in a larger size that you can print out and hand to your players. Now, I'm a big fan of player handouts. I think that's something really fun. Adds a little bit of interaction. Obviously at the minute a lot of us are probably playing our role-playing games remotely, but hopefully very soon we'll be able to play them in person again, so really like that. All the non-play characters are compiled at the end of a chapter. Now I'd have liked to have seen these stat lines kind of within within the storyline as well, rather than having to flip back and forth. I understand why they're at the end of a chapter, because obviously if they crop up again, you don't have to flick back trying to find the correct page that they're on. What could be nice is maybe making copies of these and printing them out, as you've got little handouts for each of the NPCs perhaps. But yeah, so the book goes through, it kind of calls out any areas where you might need to give it some attention and timings. There's quite a few bits in here where you need to keep a track of the progression of time. All that stuff is spelt out for you. So I think for a new kind of games master, it does a really good job of kind of spelling out what you need to do, what you need to keep track on. There's a few optional encounters as well, and like I say, depending on the way that the players go, things may deviate a little bit. But by containing everything in these kind of chapters as a session, I'd say is probably a good bet. Maybe 2 sessions per chapter. You can create the campaign pretty easily using this. As fun as it is to create your own campaign, I always do much prefer a pre-created module that you can play through. And yeah, they've done a really good job with this. Like I say, art-wise, it's absolutely gorgeous. Lots of really nice pictures in there. Some awesome illustrations of the non-player characters. We've got some really nice maps as well. And yeah, it's just a really, really nice book. Cubicle 7 have done a great job with these, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the other 3 books in the series. It's going to be fun to kind of play through the whole campaign in one go. Obviously that's a lot of gaming content here. You've got, what, 8 chapters here? Even if that's, 1 session per chapter, that's still enough content to keep you going for a fair while. And some of the bigger chapters may take a couple of sessions to play through. But yeah, really fun. And like I say, there's some deviations from the previous kind of established storyline. If you do want to mix things up to kind of throw off the expectations of people who are kind of returning to it, which I think is a really nice touch. Makes things a little bit more interesting for them, and puts everyone on a level playing field as well. The established players can't, cheat essentially by knowing where to go or what to do. So yeah, that's pretty fun. Obviously get a nice big kind of dungeon in here in the castle, which is a nice encounter with, again, some really nice maps. Again, I'd like to see all these as physical handouts, but they're easily photocopied, aren't they? And you've got really nice illustrations of them in the book as well. So yeah, again, I don't want to kind of dwell too much on the secrets and stuff in here, because people will want to play it. But yeah, it is really, really cool. As you'd expect, we've got cults behind the scenes, pulling strings. We've got a case of mistaken identity from the player characters. Some interesting goings on. So yeah, really, really fun. And yeah, I think they've done a great job with these. What they've also done is there's kind of like an additional chapter at the end here, which then ties the adventure into the next book as well. So obviously we're going to Middenheim. We kind of get a conclusion here that wasn't really in the original version of it. That then leads it more kind of neatly into the main campaign of the next book. So yeah, really good to see that as well. At the end of the book, we get a kind of an appendix giving us something really cool. So obviously, some players will just want to get their experience, spend it, set up their careers and stuff all sorted. Obviously, in the main book, it discusses, time spent training and finding the requirements to go on your various career paths. This expands that for 4 of the careers. We've got the boatman, the wizard, the physician, and the racketeer. And these give you mentors that your characters can get introduced to, spend time with, and learn the way of their trade from them. From a role-playing element, I think that's really, really fun. And I'd certainly encourage that in my group, because I think that's quite fun to, even if it's a mini training montage, just means that your characters have learnt the ropes from this individual. You can then include them in your future campaigns as well, and the players could go back to them to kind of continue their training. Equally, if the character gets trained and then immediately shoots off to do heroic stuff, they might not want to talk to you again when you go back. So yeah, I think it's interesting having some like interactive characters that you can get your training from, rather than it just being an exercise of, you know, picking your next progression and ticking it off on a sheet. So yeah, I think that's really fun. Like I say, you get 4 of them in here. You also get any kind of NPCs that are tied to that character as well. And again, with the whole stat blocks and their opinions and thoughts and views, so you can best roleplay them as the GM. So yeah, really like that. Hope that we see some more of those in the future books, because I think that's a really fun touch. Like I said earlier, we've got all the handouts as well, separately at the back in a larger format than they were in the back of the book, which is really cool to see. And a few little kind of handy things for the GM as well, to keep track of various things. And again, all the maps, so I'll certainly be making copies of all these and handing them out to the party, because I think that's a nice touch, and yeah, I really like that side of it. So yeah, that is a quick flick through the main Death on the Reik book. What I'm also going to have a look at, though, is the Death on the Reik Companion. So as with the previous volumes in the series, Cubicle 7 have put out a kind of companion book that expands and builds on the content in the main book. Now, I was really impressed when I read both this one and the previous one, in that this isn't necessarily something that you only need if you're doing Death on the Reik. The content in here will be useful for any of your campaigns and can be easily adapted for whatever you do. The main bulk of this is based around traversing rivers, boats, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, as is the theme of Death on the Reik, this is pretty much the aquatic companion with all rules for that kind of stuff, and I really like seeing that. There is also quite a bit of Death on the Reik content in here, as you would expect, but I am impressed that they've made sure that it's something that players of the game in general will want, not necessarily just people who play Death on the Reik. I would say to get the most out of Death on the Reik, though, you probably want to pick up this book, because it does contain quite a lot of supplemental content that works with the stuff in Death on the Reik. So obviously early on you get a boat and you're kind of traversing riverways and stuff, and you kind of need that expanded rule set to cover all that. So just bear that in mind. If you don't get this, you may have to ad-lib a little bit with some of the content in the main book. But yeah, same as with the other books, we've got a similar kind of format with some really nice letters from Martin McKenna and James Wallace, previous illustrator and the former head of Hogshead Publishing, with their kind of thoughts on the series, which is really nice to see. The ones in the first companion book were enjoyable, and it's good to see these in here as well. We also get some Easter eggs detailed with all the kind of joke names and pop culture references and fun stuff like that are in the book. Obviously it's just, it's a little page with some fun bits on there, but I do kind of like these kind of things. So yeah, really, really fun. Going into the book properly, straight away we get a nice section on the various herbs found within the Empire, what they can be used for, where they can be found, how rare they are, how much money it costs if you want to sell them. Yeah, really nice expansion. It gives us a lot more variety for maybe wilderness-based adventurers to be able to, maybe get some supplies here that you'd otherwise need to get in town, ways of healing, ways of poisoning, that kind of stuff. Get full kind of descriptions of them all, what they do, and then some nice little kind of in-universe descriptions as well, which is really fun, including some alternate names as well, so you can, maybe use those to throw your players off the scent if they know what they're called by their kind of common name. Yeah, I think that's pretty fun. Again, something that doesn't necessarily just need to be used on Death on the Reik sessions. I'm sure this will be able to be used in many other Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay campaigns. Next up, we get some what they're calling deleted scenes. These are a couple of little adventures that didn't make it into the main book, but can easily be slotted back into it, or perhaps used as the basis of your own kind of like homebrew campaigns. So again, these are pretty good if, say, your players decide to waylay your plans and go off on another direction. Lets you pad out a kind of side adventure with these things. Always handy to have more content in there. But the main bulk of the book really is discussing the Empire's rivers, boats, naval combat, upgrading ships, all that kind of stuff. And this really is kind of the main bulk of the book. So we go into different locations such as locks, tolls that you might have to pay, being able to get through them, how you interact with them. Really cool. Obviously in Death on the Reich you are kind of on a boat for a lot of it. So these rules really allow you to make the most of that. So yeah, really, really good to see. Like I said earlier, I do think that if you are playing through the campaign, you probably will want these rules. So I think it is definitely worth picking this up alongside Death on the Reich if you want it. Obviously, it kind of fleshes out the kind of rules for boats way more than we've got in the main rule book. So repairs, damage, we get some nice illustrations of the different types of boats and all the various stats on there. We also get details of the Imperial River Patrol. And again, lots of example characters and encounters and stuff that you could do. Again, just expanding out what could happen in your campaigns. Again, we've got fellow travellers, and a lot of these have got little plot hooks that you can use to maybe make an encounter or even spin off a whole session following one of these people. So people who might be able to scam you. You've got various ne'er-do-wells who might be out and about on the rivers with you or on ships. So yeah, lots of information here to kind of flesh out your universe and give you lots of ideas of different ways to take the campaign and different ideas. So yeah, I really like that. It's a really fun idea and yeah, definitely fleshes it out a lot more. Also, you get a large number of NPCs that you could interact with on your ways as well. Again, with different encounters and different river folk that you may come across on your adventures. So you've got loads and loads of characters here. So if you need to ad-lib an encounter with a character, there's lots of ideas here that you could easily stick some post-it notes in here or some markers and have some kind of pre-created NPCs for your party to interact with. And again, loads of lore and information to flesh it out, which is really cool. Now in the main campaign of Death on the Reich, there is a couple of chapters that deal with a semaphore tower. We get a couple of pages here just detailing about them, their background, some adventure seeds, what they are like construction-wise. Again, just flesh these out so you can take that idea of a signal tower and maybe drop it into one of the other campaigns. So yeah, again, pretty fun and some really cool content to see. What's really, really fun though are the rules to kind of upgrade and trick out your ships. So, you could have a boat that the party's had for a long time, and over the course of the campaign they want to reinforce the armour, they want to make it quicker, more manoeuvrable, all that kind of stuff. There's rules and the costs to do that. Now, obviously they're quite expensive upgrades, and some of these you're not going to be able to do immediately. But if you have a whole campaign that's set on the rivers with, I don't know, maybe a party of merchants or pirates or whichever way you want to go, you can have the boat itself become a character really, with various upgrades that you can give to it. I think that's really, really fun. Adds, in all the cool stories, the ship becomes a character in itself. So let's say Star Wars, for example, you've got the Millennium Falcon, that in itself is a character. With these rules for upgrading your boats, you can have a similar kind of thing going on with your party's boat. On the back of that, we also get full rules for trading. So if you do want to very much have a merchant-based party who are going from town to town selling goods, there's full rules to let you do that, which is really fun. You could even drop this in and have a couple of sessions where maybe your party's, working for an organisation that they're trying to befriend, and to do so they have to do some, drops of goods, negotiate on prices, maybe there's a dangerous run where they need to get some goods through in good time. All that stuff is represented in these, which is really cool. I really like stuff that makes Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay feel like a living, breathing world with, real stuff going on. There's real jobs in the background. You get that in the character creation. You can be a humble rat catcher that over the course of a campaign becomes a hero in their own right. In the same way, you've got normal people doing their jobs and stuff. So yeah, really fun inclusion. I'm looking forward to doing a kind of merchant-based campaign and seeing what we can do with that. Next up, we have some more various characters that you could encounter while on the rivers. This time more kind of smugglers and pirates and all the various ne'er-do-wells that you may come across. And just like with the earlier NPCs that we saw, we've got adventure hooks, we've got 4 kind of character blocks, and I have to say some gorgeous artwork for each of these as well. So yeah, the kind of people that you don't want to bump into while on a ship. And speaking of things that you don't want to bump into, we also get a bestiary showing various monsters that you might find on the rivers. And again, some interesting stuff. Giant leeches don't sound pleasant at all, do they? But yeah, some cool stuff that you may come across. And again, as per usual, all your stat blocks and traits and kind of lore information about them. Really nice. As we are spending a lot of time near water that is possibly diseased and probably not too great to drink, we also get some details of various waterborne diseases that we get. Now, it does say that you've got to be careful with this, because you don't want it so that, you know, your party has a drink of water in a tavern and they end up getting some horrific disease that kind of ruins the play experience. You kind of want to keep these for certain points during the game, when maybe your party deviates from the course and you need to slyly nudge them back in the right direction by throwing something like this in there. So yeah, pretty fun. We also get a full breakdown of another Tzeentchian cult that we see in the Enemy Within campaign, the Red Crown. So these are kind of rivals to the Purple Hand, and it's another Tzeentch cult that is in the old world. And yeah, this basically expands them, gives them some different spells and stuff they can do, which is fun. We also get the ability to do, obviously with the Games Master's discretion, a Warrior of Tzeentch player character as well. So if you did want to do a kind of like Fallen campaign, you could very well have your guys representing a Warrior of Tzeentch. And it's got the full kind of career path and all the rules that you need to do that. So, yeah, pretty cool. Obviously, that's not going to be the taste to everyone. It's not going to fit into every campaign seamlessly. But, yeah, definitely more for the toolbox of the GM to maybe throw in the possibility of falling to chaos. So, yeah, really like that. Then we get another couple of bonus shorts, which, again, can be used as part of the main campaign to throw in as a random session in between 2 previous sessions. Or, like I say, if your party decide to go off on their own in a random direction with a boat, you could maybe use one of these to try and draw them back into the main campaign. We get 2 here, one covering a luxury river liner, which is pretty cool, and then the second one, the Grave Lord, which, as you can imagine, features an unsavoury necromancer type. I like the Vengeance of the Grave Lord one because it doesn't conclude within this kind of module here. They leave it so that it could get resolved in future Enemy Within books, which is really fun, because then you've got like a recurring character who might be turning up to harass your party, which is really fun. And then, as with the main book, you also get handouts and maps to support those additional missions as well as a pre-made character on the back. So yeah, really, really nice book. I think a lot of people will probably want to pick this up, even if they don't play Death on the Reich. Just all those options for kind of traversing rivers and boats and upgrading them, I think it's really fun. I would say, though, that Death on the Reich itself is pretty ace as well. Really enjoyed Enemy in Shadows and be able to continue that. And obviously we've got another 3 books from this. It's quite a hefty series. Now, a lot of people kind of put the Enemy Within campaign as one of the top kind of RPG stories of all time. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing the additional 3 books. Cubicle 7 have done a really ace job with these, so yeah, make sure to check it out. So yeah, thanks for that. As a look through the 2 new books. I have got a full write-up accompanying this as well, so if you want to check that out. And then yeah, hopefully when the world returns to normal, we'll gather some adventurers and play through both Enemy in Shadows and Death on the Reich. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to share some of that on the channel soon. But yeah, until next time, we'll see you later, and yeah, hope you have a good time.